Hello everybody and welcome to What's My House Worth, a favorite real estate show among Needham residents and rational real estate professionals. My name is Rob, this is Ryan. Ryan, how are you today?
I'm well, Rob, thanks.
Spring is in the air, Ryan, and spring is starting to get into the homes that we're reviewing for the show.
Yeah, I would agree.
Almost.
Getting there. A little bit of a cold snap recently, but we're warmer times are ahead.
Yes, exactly. March is a time for optimism. But we're not talking about March today. Today we're going to be talking about the month of
February.
That's correct. So let's dive in and see the big picture for the month of
February.
And the number of sales, Ryan, does it surprise you that it's so low? Because it's lower than anything we've seen in quite a few months.
Really, yeah, just really since last February.
Oh.
So, I mean, 12 sales, Rob, as you mentioned, not too many to talk about this month, but I mean, it's pretty consistent with, when we look back at last year, it's the same amount of sales.
It's like it's almost like a clone of last February.
It's very similar. Our average sale price this year is 106.2. Last year was 105.0. So I mean, it's almost identical. The average list price, however, is up this year over last year. So that's something that we might talk about a little bit throughout the show.
Yep.
Percentages: 96.2% of list. But 93.9% of original list, those two numbers are both fairly lousy.
Right, but when you're talking about 12 sales, though, you can only put so much stock into those numbers.
You can have one or two that just totally blow the curve. Mm-hmm. But average sale price per square foot, $317, Rob, that could be an all-time low in the history of this show.
Yeah, that's right.
Days on market at 96. That's not bad. Last month we were at 112. Last year we were at 87. So fairly consistent, but I think room for improvement as we get into the hot time of the year, which is coming up.
Yeah, I think that dollars per square foot is going to go up certainly as we work through the spring market.
Yeah.
Trailing 6 months, so we can see kind of the pattern, and it's obviously a seasonal component here as we are now reflecting what happened over the course of the winter, which was very little.
Yeah, right. It was a pretty slow winter. I mean, you had the spike in September. That was the finishing up of the spring market closings from last year. December always seems to have a little bit of a bump. But then you look at the October, November, January, and February numbers, all look fairly similar, and that's reflective of just a lot of nothing going on during those months.
Well, if history is any indication, we will see a bump in March.
Yes.
And this show is going to be really the last time we're going to be able to talk about February 2012, which you can remember was a magical February. I know it was a leap year, so it included that extra day. But to look at the last 6 years, what happened that year that made it so special?
I know, there was a bonanza. I mean, something it was in the water in February 2012. Everybody wanted to close their deals.
I guess.
But the last 5 Februaries, not including 12, was, pretty consistent. So, I mean, it is the one amazing thing about the Needham real estate market year over year. It's like it almost just backs itself into the same number of sales almost every year.
Yeah, so. I know, but no month like this one. I mean, if 2018 can be right in line, we might have basically a straight line going across over the course of 6 years.
That'll be an easy slide to prepare.
Yeah, well, easy for you to say. 38 River Park is the first sale of the 12 that we're going to be reviewing on today's show. We're going to start with the low sales price, Ryan.
Yep.
That's typically how we start the show, as you all know.
Yep.
But this one, something tells me you're going to be calling out the square footage police.
Well, yeah, I mean, I started to look into it. I was like, oh my gosh, that's a lot of square footage for $480.
Me too.
I was like, that's $213 a foot. That's like an all-time low.
Which might be contributing to the low dollars per square foot number. But anyway,
for sure, good point. But it's
much smaller.
Right, it's much smaller than that. It's about half that size. They're including the lower level, which is like 1,000 square feet in this case. Selling as is, River Park Street abuts 128. It's really, though, I mean, anytime you get 480, you always kind of have to dig a little deeper, and it's one of 9 sales under 500,000 since the start of 2016. So that's not very many. And it's the only one that's, quote, greater than 2,000 square feet, but as we know, it really isn't. So.
Well, I wonder if it's the only one that's on a lot that's over 10,000 square feet.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them were on small lots, but really, I think the kicker is the location. This is right, as I said, right up against 128. It's a 10,000 square foot lot, but it's long and narrow.
Right.
I'm sorry, narrow and deep.
Correct.
But still, you're under 500,000, and you do have that square footage. So really, if you make it, if it's livable square footage, I'm always a proponent of including it, but it's sort of a fine line when it's not new construction.
Right, and it's something you might have to explain when people are walking through the house, the difference between, well, actually, when they walk through the house, they probably don't know what public record's saying, but they're probably wondering this house feels a lot smaller than what the listing sheet says.
Yep.
Anywho, that's River Park Street. Now we're going to move a little bit closer to town over to Mark Tree. Actually, our next 2 listings, I believe, are on Mark Tree.
That's really exciting.
Actually, I think 3 of the 12.
3 of the 12, yeah.
Yeah, 25% of the listings are on Mark Tree, starting with 6 Mark Tree Road. This one sells for $525, Ryan.
This is an interesting listing.
Yeah, I got some stuff too.
Right, I mean, like, forget about like actually going to the house. Just reading the listing sheet was a lot of fun.
Yes, agreed.
So you had 4 price reductions in 58 days, which is active.
Yeah.
So definitely, I mean, it's an agent that's not afraid to pull the trigger along with the seller. But a lot of interesting disclosures in the listing sheet. First was the subject to seller finding suitable housing, which I haven't seen in a while.
Right.
That's the companion to subject to buyer selling their home.
Right, which I don't know. I don't know which one I like better or worse.
I don't like either one.
Right. Well,
because they're
neither
both
do I.
asking the other party to concede something that's totally out of their control.
Yes.
But also the one that stuck out was RSVP for the open house. That's a new one. Never seen anybody ask for that.
Listen.
I wonder how many he got back.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a good question. We could find out. The thing that jumped out to me, Ryan, with the listing was that, according to the listing, Needham won NeighborhoodScout.com's Executive Lifestyle Reward.
Yeah, that was
Not award, reward.
Who accepted that reward on behalf of Needham?
That's a good question, one that I can't answer, but I can say that I did go to NeighborhoodScout.com's website.
Fascinating.
Oh, well, so I have a trivia question for you. You might know the answer.
Oh, boy.
All right. So what percentage of the workforce in Needham works from home?
Oh, it was like 7 point something.
Yeah, 7.69.
Yeah.
That's high.
And it said, because it seems like, 7% of anything really isn't that high. But if you think about it, that's not, I mean, that's a lot of people.
That's a lot of people.
You think you see more people at Hazel's.
Yeah, or less people on the train.
Yeah. Right. I mean, it was interesting. I mean, not really never do we advocate or promote a website, but it was just, this guy went through that website and just put a bunch of stats on this.
Did you see the reward on the website though?
No,
Because I didn't see it.
And I also didn't, it said he had 43% of Needhamites hold advanced degrees, which I looked on that site, I couldn't find.
Yes,
but
I saw that too.
Still, I mean, a fascinating write-up for a house. And oh, by the way, there was a house that was sold too for $525,000.
Oh yeah, right. That was I forgot about that. It was 3 beds, 1.5 baths. But let's stay on Mark Tree.
Okay.
And head over to 159 Mark Tree Road, just down the road, and then over High Rock, right?
Right.
And
Not anymore because it's been torn down.
Right. Exactly. Big lot.
Yeah.
Right? Big lot. That explains why the listing price was so high out of the gate.
Well, it was so high out of the gate because they were kind of dangling it as, you can maybe
Multiples.
get 2 lots out of this, but knowing at 38,000 square feet, that's not possible.
Right, and the configuration of it.
Right.
Well, I mean, because they said it was a 9,000 square foot lot, a 28,000 square foot lot,
Yes,
basically.
it was 2 lots individually, but you couldn't put them together in a way that would make 2 buildable lots.
Right.
And it did say buyer to do their own diligence, but I mean, you could do your diligence sitting in your living room and know that really that's not a subdividable lot.
Yeah, and clearly the buyer did, because it sold for $600,000, which also contributes to the low percentage of list, right?
Yeah.
So you just have, all it takes is 1 when you got 12 sales to
And we
really
had 2.
skew the numbers. Right. All right. Next up is George Agate Road. It's 31 George Agate. Ryan, this house was awfully clean, dated, but clean.
Okay.
And we know this location. This is
it's over by DeFazio.
Correct.
This over 630. This is an estate sale. It was clean on the inside. Rob was also very clean and straightforward as far as the listing was presented. As is, take it or leave it. Not going to be doing anything to the house. And also, one thing I did note was they noted that the roof was, quote, updated.
What's that mean? They
Well,
power washed
I
it?
don't know. Like a roof, there isn't much maintenance to it. You're either gonna replace it or you're not. So
Right.
maybe updating by that they mean replace
Oh,
recently.
yeah, they're not putting a new bathroom up there.
No,
So,
right.
Right. I don't know.
Right. I don't know what you do to gussy up a roof other than replace it.
Right. And maybe that's what they did.
Okay.
So, okay, all set there. Any other
I think
comments
so.
on George Agate?
No.
Okay.
And really, that's digging pretty deep.
Right. I wouldn't disagree. Next listing is an interesting one.
Yep.
Right? Because it's unique, certainly, in the sense that it's such a small lot for that neighborhood. You just don't see 4,600 square feet lots in a really prime location. right?
Yeah.
Call this an A location.
Yeah, I mean, this is you want to like draw up a great entry level house to Needham. This is ideal, or a downsizing Needham option. I mean, it doesn't have a big lot, fine, but you're buying into Mitchell in a really nice little cape.
And your backyard is Hatfield Park.
Exactly. So you're walking to so many different things. I mean, I really liked this buy. This was a candidate for me for the deal of the month, but it's not for the buyer. But you're not getting it's not like it's a great price on paper for what you're getting. It's a good value when you package it all together with, there's the notion that people that are looking to get into Needham in the sixes are being frustrated because of development, and you're not going to get outbid by a builder for a lot that's 4,600 square feet.
No,
so I mean, this was a perfect opportunity to seize that, and 13 days on market, and somebody did. So I like this little deal. It is the smallest lot to trade since the start of 2016.
Since the start of 2016.
Yeah. So I figure it was February. Look back till the start of 2016. Yeah, this was the smallest one.
All right, good research. And the listing agent, kudos to the listing agent for pricing this one well.
And that's a listing agent from Hull.
How about that?
How about that?
There you go.
There you go.
Next up is Evelyn Road. So, I like in the all caps, sellers to make no repairs, sold as is. It's like,
and it was in there multiple times too.
I know it's in a only in a market like this, right? Where you just see listing after listing after listing. That's like as is. Like listen, take it or leave it, because if you don't buy it, somebody else will.
And also included in there is, after just making no bones about the fact that you're not doing anything, they went on to list a bunch of stuff that was broken.
Right. Oh yeah. I know.
AC doesn't
One of the
work.
AC
like, you know what? I don't care. Not repairing that.
Yeah, we'll show you.
All right.
We're going to tell you what we're not going to fix.
Here are all the things we're not fixing. But you know what? Good for them.
Yeah. It's sold in 14 days.
Sold in 14 days, and somebody's going to have some work to do.
But this is interesting. So 137 Evelyn sells for $674,000. And our next listing, we jump up to $1.125 million.
What happened to all the 7s and 8s and 9s and 1s?
That's a good question, Ryan.
There aren't any.
There aren't any. Yeah, this is a big jump. And we see it with inventory, and we're seeing it with the houses that are selling. But anyway, there's some red writing, so I don't want to step on your toes any longer, right?
I mean, this is 71 Aletha. It's sold for $1.125, Rob.
Mm-hmm.
When we walked through this house, we actually talked to the agent, and she was kind of perplexed as to why it was still on the market.
As were we.
And I mean, the square footage includes a basement. It's got 3,582. The actual house is 2,982. So there's some basement square footage included there. But the reality is, I mean, this is a good location.
Yes.
It's a nice lot. This house was built in the 90s. It's been, it's got a little bit of 90s finish to it, but it's absolutely move-in condition. So I just looked at it, and I kind of, did like a, if I were the buyer of this house, I'd want to comp it out and see what similar homes are selling for. And comps were just jumping off the page.
Yeah,
they were all above this sale price. I mean, you had 45 Rivard. I mean, remember that one with the remarks, which were fantastic.
Yes.
16
Legendary.
Aletha for 1.17. That was just up the road. That was the split that was renovated. 263 Honeywell for 1.16. And these are all homes that sold recently that have the same features on paper that all sold for more. So I just, this one, somebody got a really good deal. And I think part of it's timing, and this was listed in September, at the end of September, so the fall market really wasn't that great.
No.
And
it wasn't a very deep backyard.
No, true, but I think the buyer did very well here, and they're gonna reap the benefits of that long term.
All right, there you go. So that's your deal of the month, 71 Aletha Road.
There you go.
Something tells me you're going to have a few things to say about the next listing as well. Brian, correct?
71 Grosvenor, Rob.
That's right. So that was one that was traded within our office, or?
Yeah, we represented the buyer
Represented
here.
the buyer, I should say. And it says here, in all fairness, Ryan, before you get rolling on this, it says original list 13699, but actually the original list was 1449.
Correct.
With a different listing agent.
Right. So there was some downtime. The property came on last year in March, right in the spring market, but it was overpriced. And this was a house that was built in 2004, and it was built. I think there was the style of the owner kind of showed through the house. So the current buyer is going to do some cosmetic updating, and I think that's reflected in it stays on market. Why it didn't go immediately last spring when everything was selling. And then it went off the market, went back on in the fall, and at a different price with a different broker, and sold relatively quickly. But you know, it's a house that has a lot of nice features, and the yard is very, very unique. It's on Grosvenor, but it's located. The driveway is probably 70 yards long. I mean, it's very, very. It's set back from Grosvenor. And it's abutted by the Broadmeadow baseball field, which is kind of cool.
If this house is, for whatever reason was torn down tomorrow and you're rebuilding it, are you rebuilding it as far back off of Grosvenor as it's currently built?
Yeah, I think you are, but because of the way that the lot is configured.
Okay.
So the house was positioned, I think, appropriately on the lot because it's very narrow when you get up towards the street.
And it widens.
And it widens out in the back. So.
Okay. All right.
So good question though, Rob.
Thanks.
Good question.
Thanks.
But I think it'll be a pretty cool house when all is said and done.
All right, we'll look forward to that. Anybody who travels on Nahoyden frequently recognizes the next house. It's because it's kind of set atop Central at the end of Nahoyden. It's 963 Central Avenue, and this was a kind of a blend of old and new. The front of the house, Ryan, actually originally built in 1830.
Yeah.
So a lot of history in this one. And it sold for $119 in 2007. So I would say the folks that bought it back then did pretty well for themselves.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, certainly it's been updated. Not a lot of 1830s still running around that house, but
right. But I think by the size of some of the rooms,
yeah.
I think it's very clear.
The elements there, yeah.
Right, when you're walking through what's new and what's not.
Yeah, there's also a separate parcel of land that's kind of tacked onto this for another $475,000, which is interesting.
Yeah, and it's a big lot in its own right on its own.
Right.
But similar in the fact that it's kind of set back in most of the yards in the front, although it's not as flat like Grosvenor was. It slopes down. We good there?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, all right. Next up, 5 McIntosh Avenue. And Ryan, how about that?
Looks like you got some red writing of your own there, Rob.
Did that surprise you, Ryan, to see that?
Your red writing?
Yeah, that it was my deal of the month for the seller.
I don't know. There's only 12 sales. You got to pick one.
Yeah, well, there's that. But on paper, this seems like a perfectly reasonable number. And what I find sometimes when I'm talking about the deal of the month for the seller, that usually means that the house sold for more than what I think it's worth. So I got to sit up here and kind of bash the house saying it's not worth that. So that's not my intention. It's
how we all feel, though.
Yeah. But it's we walk through these houses sometimes, and with this particular house on McIntosh, there wasn't much in the way of a backyard at all due to the fact that it's on a corner lot that's not necessarily a very big lot. And you walk through the house and it was built in 2010, and you think, does this house feel like it's 7 years old? And it just felt like it was a little bit older than that. Lots of cherry in that house, don't get me wrong, cherry's nice, but it's just not what you're seeing with today's new builds so much. You're seeing more white, and it was just a lot of the same. I felt like walking through the house. So it felt like a 1.3-1.35 house to me personally walking through. So I thought, 1.4 for the seller was a good number. It's more than they paid for when they bought it. So I just thought the seller did well in this transaction, and that's why it's my deal of the month for the seller.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that you're saying there are exactly what would apply to Grosvenor, and it's why Grosvenor sold in the low 1.3s.
Right.
So I mean, it's an apt statement or observation rather. I mean, this house, like you said, sold for 1.32 when it was brand new, and that's a big jump for aging new construction.
Yeah.
But. I agree. It also, one thing, it has to have like a geothermal heating system.
That's true.
I mean, how much does that appeal, or how much value does a buyer place on that?
I would say not much.
Yeah.
But I mean, more so if there's no gas, which I don't believe there is.
And I mean, what about the builder's name being mentioned in the MLS listing? How do we feel about that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't love it.
I mean, the MLS police weren't all over that, were
Yeah,
they?
I know. I guess not. Somebody slipped a fastball. Okay.
For those of you out there that don't know what we mean, you are forbidden in MLS to use the names of anybody really associated with the house.
Right.
No proper names. It's kind of like Scrabble.
Exactly. Because if you weren't forbidden, you would see Ryan's name all over his listings. 168 Mark Tree Road is the next listing, and this is we're approaching the end here, Ryan. And
not of the show, just of things we have to talk about.
That's correct. This one kind of straddles the line here, I would say, of the outskirts and Needham proper. Wouldn't you say?
Is Mark Tree the line of demarcation?
Well, it depends where along Mark Tree. So I would say no, right? Because corner Mark Tree in Great Plains, certainly not. But
No.
As you go down Mark Tree towards the dump, once you hit Central.
But I mean, aren't we just plunking a radius around like Town Hall, and you have a your radius is a mile,
Mile?
in all directions.
Mile seems a little low.
A little low.
Yeah, I think so. Does it have to be walked to town to be considered
true.
town proper? I don't know.
You're right. You're right. I think that's probably pushing it.
So yeah, this is evolving, as we're redefining the town. But anyway, this one was a pretty house. Really, really nicely done.
Well,
I thought I liked it.
It's a superior residence, Rob.
Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, now I get that. So right.
Yeah, take that, all the neighbors.
1575, good number there.
Yeah, a lot sold for $625 in November of 2015. So that's not a bad little deal for the builder.
No, it is not.
$625 to get to 1.575.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, a lot of space though. And lastly, we're going to close things out in terms of listings anyway. We have a lot of fun things planned for afterwards with the big seller, and this was a big seller indeed.
Yeah, wow. This might be one of the most difficult homes to try to price and sell that I've seen in Needham in a long time. And I mean, and I'm not just saying that because it was listed at 3.25 and sold for 2.4, went through 3 agents, 7 different prices in its 509 days, including a $300,000 price increase between brokers B and C, which is rare.
Yeah.
The inside of this house was just so specific. I mean, there was so much wood and cherry, and you mentioned cherry in your reference on Macintosh, but this whole house was cherry.
Well, don't forget about the Santos mahogany.
And mahogany. That's just the floors. I mean, I'm talking walls, built-ins, everything. The basement had a wine cellar that was unbelievable. It was this brick wine cellar. It was, about the size of the room we're in. Very impressive. Had a full bar in the basement. It was really, really cool.
Yeah.
But just how do you comp this house? I mean, what are you comparing it to? You're just looking for a buyer that's seeking these specific finishes and items, and it's very hard to measure, especially in Needham when we haven't seen a lot of these in recent years.
No, we have not.
Guess how many fireplaces were in this house?
6.
7. That's a lot.
Yeah, that is a lot.
So I mean, really cool house, and I'm certainly not critiquing the agents and their pricing. I mean, it's just your.
I think the opposite. I think you're basically saying they had a hard job.
It was not an easy sell for sure. But the buyer, I'm sure the buyer
feels great about
feels great, and they're probably like, this is the house I've been looking for, because unless you're going to go in there at 2.4 and do just a gigantic makeover, then you obviously are drawn to a house with that kind of finish.
Well, timing is everything, Ryan, as we know.
Yeah.
And so, still 2.4 though. That's up there.
Yeah, that's a
top.
Good to be back in the 2s.
Yeah, that'll be a top 5er for 2017, I bet.
Yeah, there you go.
Market snapshot. So, how are things looking as we are knocking on the door, Ryan, of the spring market? And I think we can both agree that 42 is pretty surprising, right?
Yeah, I'm waiting for that. The broker tour caravan roster to have 18 houses.
It's good. It's imminent.
Right. So
it's imminent.
42 active single-family listings. I mean, we had 40 last month, and that was January.
Yeah.
So it's 65 at this time last year. That's more what we're accustomed to seeing.
And it's not like there's 3 feet of snow on the ground.
No. There hasn't been.
It's been a mild winter, so usually I feel like with a mild winter, the spring market kind of kicks off sooner, but
and the next slide will sort of illustrate that.
But let's not get to that
yet.
Sorry. Just relax.
Yeah, so I mean, average listing price still up in that 1.5 range. Last year we were really in the same spot. Last month, same spot. So the table is set, right? Like we've seen the demand in some of the listings that have come on in the early parts of the spring market. I mean, we both witnessed something we'd never seen before earlier this year.
No doubt.
In terms of demand at a house, but so I think the demand is there. That isn't the issue. It's just where are the properties?
Right, and I think they're coming.
Okay.
And they're going to be coming fast and furious.
Wow.
Okay, so slide time. We only had 12 houses to do, right? So
we've been very busy for the past 2 weeks.
We had our research staff working diligently, and in light of the fact that there were only 42 houses on the market for early March, it felt low, so we wanted to compare it to early Marches of yesteryear.
Yeah.
And remember we were sounding the alarm bells last year in March. Holy cow, 65 listings, there were only 38 last year. Sound the alarm bells, too much inventory.
I think it's because we failed to really appreciate, which we should have, was you can throw 2015 out. Because that was on the heels of February of 2015, which was a gigantic mess.
But I don't know if you do throw it out because it's so similar to 2017.
No, I think that's what makes 2017 such an oddity.
Oh, I see.
Because 2015, I mean, as everybody remembers, it was Ice Dam Central over here. So people were putting their houses on and then taking them off because they had to fix them,
or not putting them on at all
Right.
and waiting until the following year.
Right. So that was just an abomination. But so that 38 is probably, you know, there's probably 15 to 20 houses that would have been on in March of 2015 that weren't because of the conditions.
Right, but I think the lesson you can glean from this slide is that you can't really pinpoint when the spring market's going to start. You know it's going to be early March, but you don't know if it's going to be the 1st of March or if it's going to be the 10th of March. Because
I think it starts in February.
Do you?
Yeah.
All right. I mean, so you're saying it already started?
Yeah.
With 42 listings?
I think it did. I think we know this to be true. Get on fast. Get on early.
Yeah, I'm not
the
disagreeing with
demand
that.
is there.
But yeah, all right. Okay, Ryan. So new feature for the show. We're going to do something we've never done before. All right, it's very exciting.
Yep.
It's called the question of the month.
All
and
right.
what we're going to do is we do have people that occasionally will send in questions or ask us on the street. So it's time to get some skin in the game and let people get rewarded for being interactive with the show.
All right.
So with the question of the month, here's how it works. If you send us an email to that email address, take your time. It'll be up there for a little while. You can write it down. If you send us a question and we use your question on the air, we will send you a prize.
Any prize?
Well, we're not going to divulge right now what the prize is, but I can tell you it's definitely worth sending in a question, I'll tell you that much.
Okay.
So it can be about anything. Obviously, we prefer it's about real estate. But
Well, it might not be on the air if it's about,
That's
if
true.
It's about unicorns.
That's true. So, but get the questions in. We love it. We love interacting with all those fans.
Okay.
And as an example, so a question that was asked recently, we have put into
It's
the
more of
system.
an observation.
From Brian S. It says, you tend to take your time on the early listings and then speed through the later ones. Can you spend more time talking about the more expensive homes? That's a good question.
I mean,
Can we?
Well, I think you can't. One thing you can't discount is that we're total amateurs.
What do you mean, where?
and so a lot of times we run out of time towards the end of the show.
What do you mean, we?
No, I mean, in actuality, there is something to be said for the fact that a lot of the more expensive homes at the end of the show are new construction sales that, while they're on the market, they're not homes that are necessarily available for open houses or taking buyers to. So we don't get a chance to see some of those houses, and those are some of the ones that we don't have as much commentary. We talk about the location, how it looks on paper, that kind of thing. But not having been inside definitely takes away a little bit.
That, and sometimes we tend to talk a little bit too much in the early part of the show, and
That's
we
the
run out of
amateur
time at the end of the show. So thanks for that question, Brian S. Lastly, we are going to the listing picture of the month, which is always fun. Keep in mind, this month's champion, on the actual listing, this was the main primary picture. So if you just pulled up like the MLS sheet and there was one picture, this was it. And this was a house.
Okay.
This was not a piece of land.
Where is it?
Clearly they hadn't done any landscaping in a while. But
yeah, that's the new one.
I mean, either get on the other side of the trees or just don't have an exterior picture. But goodness gracious. That was the #1 picture.
Well, I mean, you want people to make sure they don't drive by it. So, okay, there's a big clump of trees, but whoa, no, we're in the right place.
You know what? No, I have a theory. That looks to me like a photographer who didn't want to get out of the car.
Right. Well,
Right? Because you can see the street.
Yeah.
All right, that does it for our listing picture of the month. Now, if anybody wants to contact the show, which we, of course, encourage.
Sure.
What would be the way to do that, Ryan?
Give us a call, 781-707-6564. Or, as we mentioned before, you can email us at rob.ryan@hawthornre.com.
And that's the only way to contact us if you want to win a prize.
That's the only way to contact us if you want to win a prize.
Right? Okay. Keep going. Sorry.
And we encourage everybody to follow us on Twitter. That's at Hawthorn_WMHW. And we're also on Facebook, too. You can just like Hawthorn Properties. You can get all kinds of updates on listings and various market events and
Also,
ongoings.
new website for Hawthorn as well, I should mention.
True. HawthornProperties.com.
So spring market, it's here, it's coming, right?
Oh, it's here.
Well, you said it was here in February, but like you're going to start seeing the market's going to start to get flooded. Can we both agree on that?
I mean, I gotta believe so. I really do. I think it's going to be bustling.
I do too.
Because, like I said, the demand is there. The buyers are out there.
Yes.
Feed them, Needham.
And the sweet spot is the 800 to 1.1.
Yeah, you want to be the only game in town.
That's the game to be in.
Right.
That does it for this episode of What's My House Worth. We appreciate you coming by, and we will see you again very soon.